All right. Well, let's kick off. It's 11:17. We're a couple of minutes. I usually wait a couple of minutes for people to thread in, but thank you all so much for joining us today. The topic of today's AMA for everyone is game development. So today we are joined by two LAMINA1 engineers, our SDK and web leads, Chris Mahoney and Joel Belgard, as well as Neville Spiteri, Matt Sanders, and Anthony Bott from LAMINA1 early access partner Wevr. They are creators of several award-winning immersive XR experiences, and now developers of a cloud platform for interactive creators to develop and ship virtual worlds and applications on real-time game engines. We're here today to talk about Web3 metaverse game development, SDKs, and the future of creator tooling for the next generation of immersive online experiences. Because at the end of the day, creating open metaverse experiences and immersive experiences is still really hard, right? And so, it's one of our core missions at LAMINA1 to help make that easier for open metaverse creators. And yeah, we're super excited to have Wevr on because they are a specific partner that is helping to do that in really incredible ways. Along the way, we're also going to be answering a couple of questions about our progress at LAMINA1 in developing and testing our own developer tools for game engine creators. And we'll also be finishing up with a demo of the Wevr platform, which our teams have actually recently been experimenting with as part of our early access program collaboration and the development of our first SDK that we're going to release to the community, which is our Unity SDK. So I guess to kick things off, I just wanted to give the floor to Neville, you and Anthony, just to tell us a little bit about your background in game development and game design. You guys started out as immersive creators, right?
Yes, indeed. So Weaver started 11 years ago, and our mission was very much to create like a next generation content studio, developing all kinds of experiences using Unity and Unreal. And we spent a really awesome several years of creating all kinds of immersive XR and VR in particular experiences, some of which you may know of or have heard of, maybe even tried out, one of which is called The Blue, which is an underwater ocean experience. And the team's background is very much like, since all through our careers, very focused on being creators and digital explorers. And I started out, developing a program called Maya, which is the 3D animation system that was like 3 decades ago. That's going to date me a little bit, but point being that the whole founding team and our CTO worked at Electronic Arts, and Anthony's got a long career in making stuff. So we really love building and creating worlds and making it easier for others to do the same.
Amazing. Yeah, so I know you mentioned, so you built the Blue, which is an amazing underwater experience that kind of like took the immersive world by storm when you guys first came out of it. And you guys also did a bunch of really awesome immersive Harry Potter experiences. So would love to hear just from you, like, going back to the like creating immersive content is hard. What were some of the biggest learnings and challenges you guys learned when building experiences like that?
Too. So Anthony and I will tag team all this. I'll start by talking about the Blue a little bit and then hand it over to
Yeah.
Anthony to talk about Harry Potter. So, the Blue, it was early days. We started on a really early version of Unity, and a lot of the challenge really had to do is when you're using new tools, new platforms. We were ending with the DK1, the original Oculus Dev Kit. Right at the very beginning, where the SDK was still clunky, and you're kind of pioneering, right? You're on the edge and you're trying stuff out. You're kind of among the first to hit the various roadblocks. It's kind of like sort of you're kind of trying to you're flying while you're building the plane, kind of as the metaphor goes. So that's really exciting and also really challenging at the same time. And it requires a lot of sort of really patience and willingness and passion. And that you're by breaking new ground, you're sort of you're also helping others. And so one of the things we did in the early days of the Blue is we were literally the first company outside of Valve to get access to their what was called a -1 prototype headset, which eventually became the HTC Vive, right? So this is really early days, and we participated in VRLA, which was an event, and we were the first to kind of show the Valve headset in public, and it was crazy, right? There was long lines of people all checking it out, and people really enjoyed that kind of first time experience of it being in VR, experiencing presence, and kind of having this close encounter with this whale. But the road to get there was, again, dealing with hardware that hadn't been used for the first time, being collaborative, working closely with the devs, and kind of like sort of, locking arms and kind of working together and figuring stuff out. So that was a lot of fun. We got the Blue out, one of the very early VR experiences. And since then, we've developed a lot more. We've worked with, top, sort of Hollywood creators, and all the way to like, unknown artists that we help kind of bring to the stage. That kind of led us to one of our biggest projects, Harry Potter, which we did with Warner Brothers, and Anthony can share a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the question was was it difficult, or what was the exact question? Was it like groundbreaking?
Yeah, what were the sort of biggest learnings and challenges you had when building these sort of early experiences?
Sure. Well, Harry Potter, getting to direct that and make that was like is an awesome task. But I think the creatively, like learning the medium and the sort of the craft of like immersive, really, I spent from like 2015 to like 2020 when we started that project, and we did several sort of test projects with Warner Brothers. So it was a lot of learning, just like anything that when you're doing something creative, it's kind of all the work that you've done in your past that you can kind of bring to the present. And directly with the Harry Potter project, it was really trying to find the sort of the wish fulfillment of a user that would want to go in with 6 friends and have an interactive experience inside of Hogwarts or flying a broom over London. It was like really trying to find those key moments, test those to see if we can find that it actually would work. And then it was just all sort of like really like a team of people that were super passionate about making it look perfect and wonderful. So it was, it was hard, because the tricky thing with immersive is like when you see a film usually uses like anamorphic lenses, or they use wide angle lenses. So when you're watching things or you're seeing things, you're seeing it kind of differently than when you actually experience it first person. And so we kind of had to really work inside the medium to present the way the characters that Harry Potter represents bigger than life. Like if you actually kind of did them the scale, they just didn't feel as terrific or as big. So we had to actually play with scale a lot, and we had to play with a lot of presence, meaning like bringing a Niffler really close to you and having Dobby right up in your face. And so it was just a lot of experimenting like that. So immersive content making is a challenge in itself, just the way that you have to actually address the medium. And then there's the technical challenges, which is like it's there's a lot kind of going on technically. You're doing more than the average project, but when you get it right, it's super rewarding. And we thought we nailed it, and we had a lot of people that loved it. If there's any follow-up questions, I'm happy to ask. I just feel like I might have be going on too long.
Totally. I mean, I feel like that's a really good transition to just kind of my last question, which is like, obviously you created these experiences, you went through the pain of like immersive creation. And as someone, I came in from the immersive world. I was working with Madison Square Garden for years, trying to figure out like, how do you create content for a 4-acre large screen that completely envelops the audience? And we had the same learnings with scale and motion sickness and sensory stuff. And I'm sure we could nerd out about that. But it's interesting because you guys recently, and this is why you have why we have you here today, which is you guys made the transition from making experiences to making technology that empowers game developers to make experiences. So I'd love for you guys to go into like why make that transition and what is Wevr doing now today to help empower open metaverse developers.
So yeah, we, while making these experiences, we, as much passion as we have for the actual, content experiences themselves and delighting the audiences, we're equally, if not more, passionate about the development process and streamlining the production process and making the lives of engineers and artists, producers, better day to day. And it was in particular was through COVID actually that we were forced to work remotely and collaboratively, and that kind of started a thought process where we internally built out several pipeline tools to connect artists working in Blender and Maya to the designers working inside Unity or Unreal, and the engineers that are working with the code and working with our producers and also our stakeholders, our clients that wanted to review the work and see our progress and kind of have everybody feeling like they're working in the same game studio. Or, in this case, it wasn't a game, it was this, virtual experience. And so that really brought us this idea of like, well, we actually need a virtual studio. What we need is this online virtual space, this shared space where different developers and artists, like the team coming together, can easily work together. And we found that a lot of the pain points had a lot to do with the core day-to-day plumbing of how do you version the different assets that you're creating? How do you make it easier to generate builds from Unity and Unreal to be able to easily review them and have different members of the team and stakeholders see the progress and review? How do you make it easier for perhaps a contractor that is joining a team for a short period of time, them access to the repository? And then all of these things is kind of what led to us really focusing on building out this platform called Virtual Studio. We really realized there was a gap in the market. There was an opportunity to go and make this available to developers everywhere. And we've been fans of the metaverse and the concept of sort of decentralized shared spaces online for forever, right? Since obviously Snow Crash and we've been kind of on this journey. And so we really felt like our contribution to the metaverse or the next generation internet can be in providing this virtual studio platform, like a place where you can build your corner of the metaverse and make it easy to share what you're working on with others and kind of take a lot of the pain of the basic plumbing away. So you're still using your favorite engine, Godot, Unity, Unreal, but we try to make the actual process itself. So that's why we pivoted. That's what we're doing now. And we hope to be in a position now to roll forward to partner with LAMINA1 and really kind of empower metaverse developers by solving this pain point.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm actually going to stop asking questions. We actually got a ton of questions from the community for you guys this week. So basically, so we rolled out this AMA as part of just a general week on game development. We released a survey, and it actually looks like almost 35% of LAMINA1 survey respondents this week are currently involved in developing a Web3 metaverse game or application. So you guys are definitely with your people. We got over 400 questions this week for you guys to answer, spanning everything from like game development pain points to best practices for optimizing game performance. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive in and credit a bunch of the Discord members who submitted these questions. So I guess to sort of begin, Titanovix is wondering, what is the collaboration? What kind of started the collaboration between LAMINA1 and Wevr? Like, what are our main objectives right now in working together? Nev, I'll have you guys kind of open up the floor first, and then I'll probably tap our engineers in second to kind of give their inputs on this as well.
Well, I think it very much starts, like I said, we had read Snow Crash when the book first came out. We, in our company meeting before LAMINA1 was even announced, we gave out copies of Snow Crash to all of the members of the company at Wevr. And when we first heard about LAMINA1, we then also realized that we have a lot of friends that work there. And in particular, Tony Parisi, who had worked with Wevr previously. And we reached out and started talking, and it immediately felt like we had very similar shared visions. But more specifically, there's like some real, very tactical, practical things we can do to kind of bridge virtual world development with blockchain and the fundamentals of Web3 and the principles of the open metaverse that LAMINA1 is driving. And so it really felt like a natural fit. We're focused on the dev tools, and there seemed like a really obvious place for us to collaborate and offer value to the teams.
Awesome. And I know I've been kind of searching for some of our L1 folks, but it looks like we might be having a couple of technical difficulties.
I'm in here.
Oh, who's in? Joel, you're here.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I've been here the whole time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Sorry, I was looking for Mahoney. There's a lot of people in this room. So, Joel, I'd love for you to also kind of talk about what you guys have been working on the L1 dev team side. I know, Joel, you're our SDK lead. So obviously it's also your job to kind of like help onboard open metaverse creators working with game engines onto the LAMINA1 platform. So yeah, I mean, do you want to weigh in on what you've been working on and how that kind of fits in with Weaver's mission in this space as well?
Can ramble for a bit. Let me just start by saying that I jumped into the Web3 world from being a regular Unity developer. I've been a Unity developer for 11 years, and making software, games, and game adjacent stuff in Unity is a big passion for me. And I've only just kind of started to peek into Web3 more intensely over the past year or so. And there's a lot of apprehension to adopting it in the gaming sphere. But that just means that there's an opportunity for us to show people that it can be done nicely and not in a negatively contextualized way. So I've been working on the biggest pain point, which is, there's so many roadblocks, there's so many scary things in front of someone if they want to get into making Web3 games. There's all the wallet connectivity stuff. There's all like the what exactly is it? There's so many concepts, even from a developer perspective, that are just different in that world. So, much like what Weaver's doing, the platform of like, I want to get into this, but it's hard, is the primary goal of the L1 for Unity SDK. So we're working on giving you the tool sets to just like, okay, make your game the way you normally would. And then the Web3 layer just slots in almost seamlessly. That's the primary goal behind it. And we've built a couple of tools to do that. We're working on more all the time. And we've made a little demo to demonstrate NFT interaction with our blockchain, so you could buy a cosmetic for your character and to have that cosmetic be owned by you. And I think that's where a major portion of the value of Web3 and gaming comes, is we already have microtransactions. They're already ubiquitous throughout most big games, but you don't own your own cosmetic. And I think that's where the problem is. You own your own cosmetic. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. And the ultimate dream, of course, is you take it into other games and they have some interoperability. And that is where we are. That's where I'll stop rambling. I don't know when to stop talking.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert to everyone here listening into the AMA. Actually, after this session today, we're going to be dropping a couple of videos that'll allow you to kind of peek inside our development with the L1 for Unity toolkit and a really cool game. Kind of a quick little space laser dog foodie game that Joel and Mahoney, our web lead, have been working on to sort of test this out in practice, that we're super excited to share with you. And the way that Wevr fits in with this actually is the fact that we created it once just kind of on our own. And then we gave Chris an assignment a couple of weeks back to create a clone of the project on Wevr, and I wish he was here in person to rave about it the way he's been raving about it like for the last couple of weeks. But he has been calling it, I think, my favorite way that he's described it is a GitHub on steroids. And I know it's been super exciting to be able to collaborate with Wevr on this front to kind of reveal like just how much easier making these sorts of builds and even these sort of simple experiences with a tool like Wevr. So jumping forward to a couple of more questions. Astro asks the Wevr team, could you guys please share some insights into the innovative technologies and engineering solutions that have been instrumental in pushing the boundaries of virtual reality experiences developed by Wevr? So what's the sort of tech and solutions that you guys have come up with that you're super excited about?
I don't know if Neville can answer that. This is Anthony. I'll take a shot at that. So that's a broad question. So is there a tighter focus on that? Is that for like on the way you can run game builds, or is that specifically like an art and craft of making game plays? Is there a focus on that question?
Let me zoom in a little bit deeper to another question by Sherbert0123, who asks, how do you see virtual reality and augmented reality shaping the future of gaming? And what innovative approaches are you taking to leverage these technologies in the game development process?
Yeah. Well, I think that, VR and AR are both sort of like a fun place to think about making games. So I think that the community is doing really a lot of fun stuff, and I think that that's just going to continue. I think that the number one thing that I see with sort of like whether it's VR and AR is like really taking advantage of that it's spatial. That like especially with AR, it's like if you are mapping gameplay onto a real world, let's say if you're in your room or a living room or that's a place creatively normal game design doesn't really consider. And so that offers a challenge, but it also offers like another form of like building a creative skill to like say, how am I going to use this space to make something fun and exciting and unexpected? And then I think in the VR space, it sort of gives you the biggest canvas to play on. And there you have to actually think about like, you have to think about the comfortability of the player. Which is so drastically different than when you're building something for a flat screen or for like a regular PC game. And so those are both things, both in AR and VR, it really just sort of challenges you creatively. I tend to think the creative leads the technical, meaning like if you could really think ambitiously about a creative play moment, in most cases, the technology team, or if you're the technologist, you'll rise to the challenge and figure out how to design for that play. I don't see it being. I just think we haven't even seen the sort of the imagination unleashed. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically, but I do think that VR and AR are sort of the edge of pushing creative gameplay to the edge, whereas I think inside the traditional game space, you have so many formats and styles, and it's not that it's getting tired, but it's like you have to like really look to the indie edge to find different forms of storytelling and gaming. Whereas I think VR and AR, you can kind of really find new creative challenges right away.
Yeah, definitely. And I know in our prep call yesterday, we kind of went through a bunch of questions yesterday together, and sort of related to this, we got a bunch of questions this week for you guys and for us, just about obviously the newly released Apple Vision Pro, right?
Yep.
Big shiny piece of technology that everyone's super excited about, breathing kind of new life into the metaverse and metaverse development. So Holmberg 15A actually asks, will your teams be considering support for the newly released Apple Vision Pro in, Wevr upcoming game development projects? And you mentioned you're going to get your hands on it pretty soon, right?
I mean,
So,
I think everyone. Yeah, I'll let Neville answer that question.
Sure. So yes and yes. What's cool though is that like even if you don't have access to the actual hardware, was very clear even from today's announcement from Apple, so this week's announcement from Apple, where they released their SDK, that you can start using their APIs and SDK, and you can start kind of building and iterating on your applications and using the simulator to kind of get a sense of what your experience is like. So I think that was something that the community has been looking forward to for a long time, and that's really cool. Now, in terms of Wevr Virtual Studio, what we want, what we're working on WVS to be, is to make it be the easiest starting point for a team developing a project. So we're already working on a template project that would be an example of, you want to start out building your first kind of corner of the metaverse that you want to run eventually on the Vision Pro, that you have a starter template that you can use by downloading it from WVS. So this is forthcoming. And we currently have a number of templates already that allow you to start with a Unity project, for example, that works with Niantic AR SDK. So the idea is we'll have a similar example, and we'll bring to bear some of the the learnings that we've had from building VR experiences on Unity. In fact, the Blue was built in Unity, and make that available for the community through WVS. But again, part of what we're really trying to solve here is the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day annoying parts of the process, the plumbing of getting your code and your assets organized and checked in, and your builds automatically happening very easily in the cloud, so that you can deploy them to iOS devices very easily without having to set all of that up yourself. But of course, we are extremely excited about Spatial OS and what's going to be possible on that platform as it rolls out.
Amazing. We also got a number of questions from our community, including, Scarecrow Lord, Cornelius AST, who are kind of asking, immersive creation is one thing, creating, in Unity or for the Vision Pro or Unreal is another thing. But now, especially in, the world where the metaverse and blockchain are converging, there's even more sort of things that game developers have to keep in mind when folding in sort of Web3 into a game experience. So I'd love to kind of address questions, what are the sort of key considerations and challenges when developing a game specifically for Web3, and how does it sort of differ from traditional game development? And Mahoney, I see that you have recently popped on, and I think if you're ready to take the question, I'd love for you to kick this one off for us.
Yeah. I'll sorry for being late. My little scared, but so I've been using WVS in the context of building our subnet SDK demo, our LAMINA1 L1 for Unity toolset is kind of the working title. And so the demo is actually this 2D shooter, maybe it's already been discussed, where we're utilizing smart contracts to present cosmetic changes in, say, a laser, in this case. So the way the idea of kind of the service being used is that there isn't a difference in your workflow. It's always important when there's a tool that's as powerful as WVS that doesn't interfere with your day-to-day workflow as a developer. And it's the same thing if you're like a musician or you're an artist, right? Anything that you're asked to use in the context of your work that could potentially make it harder or less enjoyable is nothing that a creator wants to deal with. In my previous life, I had worked on systems like Unity's cloud build as a front-end engineer. And the differentiator that actually simplifies your work with WVS is just this concept of connected flows that you can use with the tool set. I say I pull my project down into the desktop client. I'm happy to say that even though there isn't a Mac client available, I was given one and it's been working like a dream, guys, just so you know. And you're able to manage your WVS flows via the command line tool inside your Unity project. And the setup's really seamless, and there's a registry of flows already available. So taking one that builds a Unity build for Windows and then connecting that to one that archives the artifacts into a zip file and connecting that to one that deploys the build to a storage area for your users to download. Not only does that simplify something that you normally have to do manually, right? That's why I originally worked on build automation tools and cloud build in the past, and really excited about using WVS myself with my personal projects, just out of simplicity, and I don't have time to build to 3 different systems on a multiplayer game. It's very easy to just grasp and understand, and so it's very rare that a new tool or service actually saves time in your already existing workflow when you're an intermediate to an expert kind of creator. You know what you need to do, and so yeah, I just want to say it's been a great experience using the product itself, and I'm excited that LAMINA1 is partnering with Wevr.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm going to be screen sharing a demo pretty shortly after this, just so that you guys can take a look at what the WVS system is in action. But Mahoney, now that you're here too, I've got a couple of follow-up questions from our community. Obviously, you're a Unity guy. You've been using it for years. You'd probably know it better than anyone I know on this earth. But Yoshi Berloni is asking, is LAMINA1 going to be primarily targeting Unity devs or Unreal devs? What's our strategy here, and what game engines are going to be supported first for LAMINA1 creators?
Good question. And I would say, actually, the best guy I know at Unity is Joel. It's not me. Joel's our SDK lead.
Yeah, I can mention that. I mean, right now we're working on the Unity one. That's our first focus, but an Unreal one is absolutely planned, and we may even go further and go into other game engines. But right now, our focus is on the Unity SDK.
Yeah, the interesting thing that WVS provides for us is, the differentiator using Cloud Build before was it was restricted to building out of Unity, right? So that where WVS has templates already created and ready to use for not only Unreal and Unity, but it has the ability to, arbitrarily run flows, right? And so some survey results that we had gotten back from the community about what engines are used, there was a surprising number of Godot users as well in the community,
Yeah.
which I say it's surprising because it was almost at par with Unreal, right? And so
yeah, it was 21% with Godot and 23% with Unreal, with 51% using Unity. So we definitely have a majority Unity crowd here with the LAMINA1 Discord, at least.
And really the reason I call it surprising is because in the wild, not in this community specifically. Those numbers look more like 90% Unity for mobile, gaming or whatever. And then Godot is almost just a blip. And it's because it's a very open engine. It's familiar to Unity users. One of our partners, I think, is coming from Godot into Unity. And so I have a strong interest in exploring kind of the level of effort it would take to support those developers. But the L1 for games tool sets are basically going to be feature at parity on all three systems. We are targeting Unity first, mostly because Joel and I, as leads on these SDKs, are very familiar with Unity. But over time, obviously, the team will become familiar with Unreal, or someone will come on with Unreal experience, or we might work with the community to port it. So we have some options there, but we expect to support every major system with our SDK. And I just saw in chat someone asked, it's a software development kit. So this is tentatively called the L1 for Unity toolset, to keep it kind of, it feels like a thin layer that stays out of your way so that we can do things like interface with partners like WVS.
I love that we're starting with that question. We probably should have started with that one. What is an SDK, and how does it power open metaverse game development? But I think we've only got about 5 minutes left this AMA, and before we kick off, I just want to ask Wevr one more question before I screen share the demo that Neville shared us. But just to kind of like recap, obviously we've been giving a ton of love to the WVS platform, but in your words, Neville and Anthony, as like a very bottom line kind of ending question, what are the main things that you want open metaverse creators to begin doing with Wevr Virtual Studio, and how are you guys going to help make their lives easier? Question from Annie Sands. Shout out.
Great, fantastic. So first and foremost, because we are big believers in the open metaverse and the vision as articulated by Neil and LAMINA1 and described in the LAMINA1 white paper, we're kind of taking the position that we're all about figuring out tooling and the chain that makes the developers' lives easier to realize whatever corner of the metaverse that they're excited about, right? And so it's really less about kind of what Wevr Virtual Studio is trying to do itself. Like, we're very much saying, like, it's called Virtual Studio for a reason. It's like you may be using Unity or Unreal or Godot in your Virtual Studio, and you may be interested in certain aspects of and feature sets that are coming through the LAMINA1 SDK versus others. And so it's really about the key message here is, it's like, make your journey easier from the get-go. You're figuring out what you want to do, what prototype, what concept, what game, what experience, what specific aspect that you're building out. You're probably going to get together with other people. You may start alone, but you're going to quickly figure out. You're most likely going to be working with your friends and developers that are working distributed around the world. And so what's the easiest place to get started? Where do you sign up, get an account, fork a project with the example SDK ready to go, and make that process as easy as possible from the beginning, but also thinking about the end state, where the code and the assets and the formats and the standards, whether there is sort of adoption around, for example, USD as a common shared format for representing certain assets, to over time make all of that more easily shareable, right? So we're thinking about how these shared repositories around the world. You could be working privately in one aspect with your teammates, but then also perhaps make it easier to share so that you can get contributions from other people, so that now, assets don't have to be reinvented. And how we can sort of intersect with a tokenization model so that we can also really kind of be in a position to support decentralized workflows and sort of individual assets where where there's a sense of sort of individual ownership built into these projects from the get-go. So it's kind of like, top thing is easy to get started, easy to get going, but also, as things grow and all of these various exciting metaverse projects develop over time, that it can all interconnect a lot easier.
Yeah, I just want to jump.
Amazing. And without, oh,
Could I
go
jump?
ahead.
Just jump in with one sentence. You gave me an idea for a flow where we actually code gen as part of our demo interfaces to the smart contracts that run the marketplace and the inventory for the lasers. And a flow could take those actual Solidity files, automatically convert those libraries and put them into our Unity project. So I just love how flexible that product is for that reason, because you just gave me that idea.
Yeah, that's totally possible. And there's lots of stuff we could do with devs that are starting games with like testnet and working together to test transactions. So we want to help everyone make games. That's what we want.
Well, without further ado, I'm going to actually screen share and play the demo that Neville sent me. Neville, you might have to do a little bit of VOing over this because the sound is not going to work properly thanks to Discord's weird screen sharing privileges. But I'm going to press play just to give you guys a feeling for, what is this service that we're talking about? What does it look like? And Neville, I'll let you do a little bit of VOing over it for us.
It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds, so it'll go quick. All right, can you see it?
Yep, and anyone that has the grid layout on Discord, up in the top left, it should say watch stream. If you want to click that button, that's how you'd see it.
Yeah, so we're just kind of scrolling through. We're on the sort of intro page of the WVS website.
Oh, that's awesome. So I can't see it, so I'm going to play the video locally. And
Okay.
okay, great. So where are you at? Are you in the okay, so basically your dev studio, right, is comprised, you're figuring out, as we were just saying, what engine you're using, or using Blender, Maya, and how are you coordinating and orchestrating all of your constituents. Wevr Virtual Studio provides collaboration, making it easier for artists and developers to work together. We also provide orchestration in the cloud, which is flows, which is what Mahoney was just talking about, making it really easy for you to automate both Unity and Unreal builds in the cloud. And ultimately, you're also deploying, and as I said earlier, making it easier to share your creations with others. Has the demo started yet?
Yeah, it's running. No.
Yeah,
That's going through. I can
it's
see
definitely
it.
running.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're at the point where you're looking at the flow registry.
Yeah, now we're looking at builds, build outputs, and this is the flow graph actually that you're seeing there. And this right here is an example of a flow that produced a bunch of render artifacts for this Lyra example. So the really cool thing is that these flows can do just about anything. It's not just producing builds. You can also produce renders. You can produce any other sorts of outputs that you might need for inputs to other flows and chaining flows together, that sort of thing as well. This right here is just a screen of the kind of starting samples that we have. So we actually do have a Godot as well, like we mentioned before. Our documentation is actually pretty good too. It kind of flashed right through there. So we have a docs website that kind of goes through a lot of the details on getting you guys set up as well. But just like what's been kind of echoed, one thing that I wanted to kind of echo as well is the fact that WVS is agnostic. It's technology agnostic. It's really, it's a place for you to store your repositories, store your content, collaborate with others, and build workflows that are, not only workflows that we provide in our starter templates and workflows that we provide in our registry, but you can also have your own workflows. You can publish them for others to share, or you can keep them within your project itself. The power behind that for me is the fact that you're not maintaining like a separate Jenkins server or like a separate, CI/CD pipeline. It's all built into the platform itself. So your project can actually be versioned with your workflows. So that way you can put your project on ice, you can come back to it a year later, and you're not going to be afraid that the project's not going to run the way that it did before. Your automations are still going to function as they did because they're all versioned. One of the other cool things about it too is that I see people are especially in kind of like the Web3 space, a lot of them are Node.js driven and things like that too. And there's nothing stopping you from putting a Node.js project on WVS, building your own automations around that, and pushing that to your own services in AWS and that sort of thing as well. So there's really kind of an unbound amount of things you can do with the platform. We just happen to be kind of tailored up front in getting kind of Unreal, Godot, and Unity games and experiences bootstrapped. So that's really kind of where we're trying to relieve a lot of the friction.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Matt. And yeah, that was Matt Sanders from the Wevr team as well, popping on to help out with this. Well, we're actually at time right now. I just shared the secret code in the chat for all of you code hunters out there. And if we want to end, I'm not sure, Mahoney or Joel, if you guys are interested in maybe flashing some of the SDK work that we've been up to. I'm also going to be dropping it on the L1 Discord a little bit later today, but I know we've been hinting and teasing about it all AMA, so I'll open up the floor to you guys before we hop off, and then we can call it a week.
What do you think, Joel? I feel like you're so much better at presentation than I am, but I could pull it out. Let's see if it's there.
I think it's gonna be you, Mahoney.
It's gonna be me.
Sorry about that one. Somebody called me. What was that one more time?
Joel, do you want to pop up the teaser video or show us around the Space Lasers demo that we're going to be dropping to the community later today to show some of the work that we've been doing on the SDK front?
I can. Give me just a second to bring it up. Let me see if it'll be. Discord famously does not like to screen share Unity very well, but let me see if I can get it to.
Cool.
Neat. And I'm on backup if it gives you trouble, Joel.
Give me just a second while I bring some things up. Okay, let's see if it'll let me do this. All right, you guys see?
Yep.
We also make sure that okay, so let's just do a quick straight up demonstration. So here we have, let me actually make this bigger. There we go. So this is the game without, actually, let me go ahead and log in first. I'll come down to our Unity SDK testnet network, or our SDK network. Put my key in there, and now we'll have the access to the marketplace and the inventory. We'll jump over to the inventory first, and we'll show off that we have these 3 NFTs in here. And I'm actually going to unequip this so that I can show you the default before we do anything else. So I got this angry red triangle, and it tries to kill me. and I have my green square, and I can shoot these teal little blasts, and it just floats around and shoots at me. We can go over into my inventory and see that we have these 3 NFTs for these different colored blasters. And we'll just try out the green one, and we can equip it, and it highlights it in blue. It's equipped. So I'm just going to hit escape, go back to the game, and now you can see my laser is green. And that's really all it's supposed to do. It's a cosmetic interaction for letting you use your NFTs to drive a gameplay experience. The marketplace has all 3 of those NFTs in it at the moment. And I'm not going to buy them again because you can't have more than one of these in this particular contract. And you can see I've sold 1 or 2, so there's a couple of them that I've already got on there. But the idea here is that we'd have a whole bunch of different gradient NFTs, and you would collect them all and have your experience be the color that you want it to be. It doesn't drive gameplay power or give you any kind of edge or advantage. It's purely a cosmetic interaction to the red one, which I think is a good direction for Web3 to go. Because when you walk into a Web3 game and you see the very first thing you need to do is buy an NFT for $8,000, it's like, oh, well, this is dumb. But if the NFTs were like normal microtransactions, it was like, oh, it's $4 and I can buy whatever visualization I want, and I could take it maybe into another game. Now all of a sudden I'm very compelled. And this game is extremely difficult. These red triangles will multiply infinitely. The more you kill, the more there will be. And that's the whole demo. It's just how long can you survive against these guys? We have some ideas on how we can do other Web3 interactions for like a leaderboard, but I died. That's the gist of it. That's the demonstration of NFTs driving interaction, and I think it's a pretty cool start.
Yeah, it's super cool.
It really is, and I want to point out that the NFT itself is actually just a data-rich blob that could be serialized in as gradient data to Unity, right? So
yeah, it's just color key codes for gradient stops for alpha and color keys. So we can use that data however you want. A different game could use that gradient data to drive a whole different experience. And you could use it to do anything you wanted to. You could evaluate a gradient and use it to determine a character's run speed if you really wanted to. You could use it to do intergame mechanical interactions, but it's just a data format that's very easily manipulatable.
Yeah, and that also means that as we build the tool sets for the other engines, gradients are very standard, right? That's the same exact way they work in Photoshop. So they're definitely going to work the same way in other game engines. And so we used the gradient data cosmetic example to show that you could just as easily use that to style, say, like an avatar's hair if you wanted. It's really up to what you'd want to do to develop in the game. And we wanted to make it serve as an example so that in the future other people could create NFTs that represent different elements in their game engine. And maybe that turns into like a registry of some sort. It's very similar.
You could even use it to like colorize the like the death explosion of enemies. Like sky's the limit on how you could use such a concept. But that was what I really wanted to put forward is the visualization modification, the experience change, rather than selling power.
And hopefully that seeds some ideas in the development community for when they have these tools. And we'll probably talk about more in the future.
Yeah, well, thank you all guys so much. We've gone a little bit over time today, but obviously this is all super exciting stuff. We had 2 awesome demos. Obviously this is just the beginning of our collaboration with Wevr, but LAMINA1 and Wevr, we're all, our mission are totally aligned with just trying to make it so that we can give creators and metaverse builders as many tools and as many sort of like onboarding on-ramps to start building, developing, and eventually launching open metaverse experiences on our chain and also off of it throughout the open metaverse at large. So thank you all for joining us today. I dropped the code. I'll drop it a couple of more times in the chat as we sign off. Just as some quick community updates, we've got more community activations and AMAs coming up. Just to keep in mind, we've got one coming up on decentralized game deployment, or, once I've designed and developed a game, how do I get it out there and distributed to the open metaverse? We also are working super hard on the upcoming Identity Light paper, which is due out at the end of this month. We are putting the final touches on it and super excited to share it with the community, and also credit all of the community members who contributed to the paper with research, inputs, everything on the Identity channel. And also, we do have a soon-to-be-announced special update from L1 Engineering about BetaNet launch this summer that I know a ton of you have been asking for. We can't say anything publicly yet, but stay tuned for that information. I will be dropping it as soon as I get the go-ahead from everyone on the team. Also, before we sign off, for anyone questing, please note, security alert, that we're on Zeely only. We do not have a Galaxy campaign, and we've noticed that unfortunately this week, several people have set up fake accounts for us on fake Galaxy domains that we are working hard to combat. But basically, if I don't post it, or if any of the mods don't post it, it's probably not real. Do not put your time into it. Do not put your information into it. Again, we want to keep you guys all safe. And you know, it's the curse of popularity, y'all. In the meantime, stay active. Hit us up with any questions and catch up on as many quests as you can as we make the transition from testnet to betanet. And thank you, Wevr, so much for joining us for this AMA. We're going to be sharing, lots more updates and exciting partnerships like this coming up soon. So, all right. Thanks guys.
for
Have a great
arranging it.
Friday. Of
Thank you
course.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for joining,
you.
everyone.
All right.
Cheers.
Take care.
You guys.